The Roman Republic was teetering on the edge of chaos, rife with corruption, political betrayals, and power struggles between the Senate and the populares. In the heart of this turmoil, one man would rise to challenge the very foundations of Rome itself. His name was Lucius Cornelius Sulla, and his ambition would reshape Roman history forever. Sulla was born into an ancient but impoverished patrician family. Unlike his aristocratic peers who inherited wealth, he had to claw his way up, relying on his wits, charm, and sheer ruthlessness. He immersed himself in Rome's elite circles, where political power was won not just on the battlefield, but in the Senate's shadowy corridors. His first step toward military greatness came under the famed general Gaius Marius, a man whose name was legend. Sulla served as Marius's right-hand man, proving himself in brutal campaigns against the Germanic tribes threatening Rome. But while Marius basked in the glory, Sulla watched, waited, and learned, knowing his time would come. The war against King Jugurtha of Numidia was Sulla's proving ground. When diplomacy failed, Sulla boldly ventured into the enemy's camp and secured Jugurtha's surrender through sheer cunning. The victory was credited to Marius, but Sulla had planted a seed of doubt. His ambition was clear, and his rivalry with Marius had begun. Rome's Italian allies, long denied full citizenship, rebelled against their Roman overlords. Sulla, now a seasoned commander, led his legions with unmatched ferocity, crushing rebel strongholds and earning the coveted grass crown, Rome's highest military honor. But even as Rome's enemies fell, Sulla's true enemy was within, the Senate itself. When the Eastern War against King Mithridates of Pontus erupted, the Senate appointed Sulla to lead the Roman legions. But Marius, unwilling to let his rival claim glory, maneuvered politically to have the command stripped from Sulla. Sulla's response was unprecedented. He turned his legions toward Rome itself. No Roman army had ever marched on the Eternal City, but Sulla was about to change that. His soldiers, fiercely loyal, stormed the city streets as senators and politicians fled in terror. For the first time in Roman history, Rome was conquered, not by a foreign enemy, but by one of its own. Marius, caught off guard, barely escaped the bloodshed, fleeing into exile. But the old general was not finished, and his name would haunt Sulla like a shadow. For now, though, Sulla was the undisputed master of Rome, but his enemies were waiting. Leaving Rome in the hands of his political allies, Sulla sailed east to confront Mithridates VI, one of Rome's most dangerous enemies. Sulla's legions swept through Greece, laying siege to Athens and crushing opposition with merciless precision. He restored Roman dominance, but while he was gone, chaos erupted in Rome once again. Marius, bitter and vengeful, seized the opportunity to reclaim power. He returned to Rome with an army and unleashed a reign of terror, executing Sulla's allies and bathing the city in blood. By the time Marius died in 86 BC, Rome was unrecognizable, a city ruled by fear. Sulla, victorious in the east, now turned his gaze back home. His legions, hardened from years of war, landed in Italy, cutting a bloody path toward Rome. The Senate trembled. Sulla was returning, and he would show no mercy. Rome's fate was decided in a brutal battle outside the city walls. Sulla's forces clashed against the last remnants of Marius's faction in a blood-soaked melee. By dawn, Sulla had won, and Rome belonged to him once again. With victory secured, Sulla unleashed the proscriptions, a terrifying purge of his enemies. Hundreds of Roman elites, suspected traitors, and political opponents were executed or exiled. Their wealth was confiscated, their families ruined, and Sulla's rule was cemented through terror. In 81 BC, Sulla declared himself Dictator of Rome, an office that had not been used since the days of emergencies. But unlike past dictators who ruled only during crises, Sulla rewrote the rules. He was dictator without a time limit. The Republic was now a dictatorship in all but name. Sulla restructured the Senate, stripping power from the populares and strengthening the aristocracy. He reformed the courts, balanced the treasury, and even re-established Rome's shattered legal system. Despite his brutality, his governance brought a strange stability, but at a tremendous cost. Then, in 79 BC, to the shock of Rome, Sulla voluntarily stepped down. He retreated to his lavish villa, writing memoirs and indulging in excess, as if the bloodshed had never happened. Why would a man who seized Rome twice simply walk away? Sulla's final years were spent in excess, drinking, feasting, and reminiscing on his legacy. In 78 BC, he died of what was rumored to be a painful, disfiguring disease. Some whispered it was divine punishment, but Sulla died undefeated, knowing he had changed Rome forever. Sulla's actions set a dangerous precedent, a general using his army to seize power. Rome had seen its first march by a Roman against Rome, but it would not be the last. Decades later, a young general named Julius Caesar would follow the same path. Though the Senate was restored, Sulla had proven that political power in Rome belonged to those who commanded legions. The Republic staggered on, but the days of shared rule were over. Sulla's dictatorship was a glimpse into Rome's imperial future. Sulla's name would echo through the ages as the first Roman dictator who defied tradition. He had reshaped Rome's laws, slaughtered its elites, and ruled through absolute power. But his most dangerous legacy was this: he showed Rome what was possible for a man willing to take it by force. With Sulla gone, Rome tried to rebuild, but his influence lingered like a specter over the Republic. His reforms had strengthened the Senate, but they had also made it clear that brute force, not tradition, controlled Rome's destiny. Watching from the sidelines was a new generation of ambitious men: Pompey, Crassus, and a young Julius Caesar, all of whom would take lessons from Sulla's rise and fall. The terror of Sulla's proscriptions had not been forgotten. The children of slain senators and exiled nobles nursed their grudges, waiting for a chance to reclaim what had been taken from them. Some would rise to power, others would fall, but none would forgive the man who had rewritten Rome's rules with a blade. The Senate believed that Sulla's retirement meant a return to order, but they were blind to what they had allowed. By permitting a general to seize absolute power, they had destroyed the Republic's greatest defense: tradition. Rome's rulers continued their petty squabbles, unaware that the next storm was already forming. One of Sulla's greatest protégés, Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, Pompey the Great, rose to prominence in the years following Sulla's death. Pompey had been Sulla's right-hand man, a young general who ruthlessly executed his master's orders. Now, with Sulla gone, Pompey sought his own path to power, using military success to bend Rome to his will. Another young Roman, Julius Caesar, had been forced into exile during Sulla's reign due to his family's connections to Marius. But Caesar was a survivor, and he learned from Sulla's brutal tactics. Decades later, he would walk the same path. Only this time, Rome would not escape its fate. Years after Sulla's death, three men, Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar, formed an alliance known as the First Triumvirate. Though they claimed to serve the Republic, in reality, they sought to carve Rome between them. Sulla had shown that power came from strength, and these men would use that knowledge to shape Rome's future. In 49 BC, Julius Caesar did what Sulla had done decades earlier. He marched his legions on Rome. But where Sulla restored the Senate, Caesar destroyed it, taking absolute power for himself. The Republic, fragile since Sulla's time, was finally crumbling. Sulla's dictatorship had been a warning that the Senate refused to heed. After Caesar's assassination, Rome spiraled further into civil war, culminating in the rise of Augustus, the first Roman emperor. What Sulla had begun, Augustus would finish, transforming Rome from a republic into an empire. Sulla's rise and fall demonstrated a simple truth: power in Rome belonged to those willing to take it by force. The days of democratic rule had ended, and the strongest generals now shaped the world. Though Sulla's reign was short, his shadow loomed over every dictator who came after him. Sulla was a man of contradictions, a brilliant strategist, a ruthless dictator, a reformer, and a destroyer of traditions. He walked away from power, The world he left behind would never be the same. His march on Rome shattered the Republic, proving that laws meant nothing in the face of ambition. Our journey through time comes to an end for today. We embark on new adventures every week. If you relish the experience, please like and subscribe.